God's chosen ones. Beloved chosen one. Pause for a moment. Still, your heart. Everything around you is being divinely interrupted for this message. Heaven has paused the noise. Why? Because your name, yes, your name was written in the book before the first heartbeat echoed through your mother's womb. This moment isn't random. It's been foretold. You are not watching this by accident. This is divine alignment. You were never ordinary. You were always marked. Before the world named you, heaven did. Before the first betrayal, the first heartbreak, the first rejection, you were already set apart. God whispered your name through eternity, and angels stood at attention. Your birth shook the spirit realm because one of God's warriors had entered enemy territory. That's why nothing about your life has ever been normal. You've always felt like you didn't belong. That sense of spiritual restlessness, that pull towards something greater, it's confirmation that you were chosen for a mission that spans generations. God's chosen one. The enemy knew. He recognized the seal on your soul and the fire in your bones. That's why warfare met you early. Why confusion stalked your youth. Why rejection came from the very people meant to love you. It wasn't coincidence. It was a demonic strategy to silence the one whose name was already engraved in heaven's records. And yet look at you. Still here, still standing, still listening. That alone is proof of divine favor. Chosen one. You weren't just born. You were sent. Sent to carry a sound, a shift, a spiritual charge. Even before you could talk, angels were assigned to your life. You were never alone. Heaven guarded what you didn't even understand. That voice inside you, that knowing, it was the Holy Spirit, whispering, "You are not like the rest." You felt it when they mocked you, when you couldn't blend in, when the crowd celebrated compromise and you stood alone with trembling hands, wondering why you couldn't do what they did. It's because your DNA is laced with destiny, and you are not called to fit in. You are called to lead the way out. There were battles you didn't start, attacks you didn't provoke, but every dart the enemy hurled was proof of your purpose. You terrify hell, not because of who you think you are, but because of who God knows you are becoming. The angels are moving. Can you feel the shift in the atmosphere? The acceleration. Heaven is orchestrating something around you. Doors are opening. Conversations are shifting. People are being placed and removed. Every piece is falling into divine arrangement. And guess what? It all started the moment heaven whispered again. Now, your name was read aloud in heaven's war room, and the angels moved. Not because of your merit, but because of God's mercy and mandate on your life. This isn't about performance, it's about positioning. And you, chosen one, are being positioned to reign. Let this shake you. You're walking into prophecy. Not one spoken over you last year, one spoken over you before the foundations of the world. Ephesians 1:4 says, "For he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight." That's you. That verse isn't just scripture, it's your spiritual resume. Every time you were told you were too much, heaven was saying, "They don't see your mantle." Every tear, collected. Every groan, recorded. Every silent cry in the dark, heard. Psalm 56:8 says, "You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." The same book your name is written in. Comment 777 below as a prophetic declaration. My name is in the book. I align with heaven. Type it boldly. Let every demon see you step into your call. Let the scrolls be unsealed over your life. You didn't just survive. You've been summoned. And heaven doesn't summon the ordinary. It calls the extraordinary. God doesn't place crowns on the careless. He reserves them for the relentless. And you, chosen one, are being crowned in the Spirit. Feel the weight of this. You've entered a new realm. Old doors are irrelevant. Old labels are expired. God is not reviving the former. He's launching the fulfilled. And if your spirit agrees, like this message, share it, and subscribe so you never miss another divine word again. Let's flood the algorithm with anointing. Let's make sure every sleeping chosen one gets awakened. This is your hour. This is our movement. Chosen one. Do you remember the first time the world wounded you? The moment your innocence collided with injustice. It wasn't random. It was strategic. From your earliest days, the enemy saw the seal upon you, the divine fingerprint that marked you for glory, and so he launched a campaign, not to destroy your body, but to fracture your spirit before you could discover your identity. He struck you young because he feared you old. You must understand, Satan isn't omniscient, but he's observant, and what he saw was dangerous. You didn't look like much to others, maybe fragile, shy, rejected, but in the spirit realm, you glowed like fire. And fire, unsettled darkness. He couldn't afford for you to mature, to wake up, to realize who you were. So he sent distractions. He sent abandonment. He weaponized people to bruise you emotionally before you could even articulate spiritual warfare. You thought it was just life, but it was war. Every wound, every betrayal, every shameful secret that was the battlefield. And you weren't weak because it hurt. No, your pain was evidence that you were in the front lines. You weren't forgotten. You were targeted. And you need to see this clearly. God allowed certain things not because he approved of your suffering, but because he trusted you with pain others couldn't carry without folding. Your ability to endure what crushed others. That's not trauma, it's testimony. You have scars, but you're still here. Even as a child, you sensed the weight, the oddness, the otherness. You walked into rooms and felt atmospheres shift. Sometimes people loved you instantly. Other times they hated you for no reason. You weren't imagining it. You carried light, and light agitates shadows. But you didn't know that then. You just wondered why you always felt like an alien, like home was somewhere else, like your soul didn't fit your surroundings. The truth is, your home is higher. Your spirit was designed in the courts of heaven. Earth was never meant to satisfy you. It was your assignment, not your identity. So the enemy lied to you early, whispered that you were worthless, used people to speak curses cloaked in conversation. You're too sensitive. You'll never be anything. You're just like your father. Words meant to form strongholds. Words that tried to rewrite what God had already written. But lies, no matter how loud, cannot override what's sealed in the book. Chosen one, you were never abandoned. You were hidden. It felt like reaction, but it was redirection. Heaven was preserving you, protecting the seed of your calling, because had you been accepted by everyone, you would have compromised to keep them. And compromise is the enemy of calling. God knew he couldn't use you in crowds that muted your anointing, so he let them turn on you. Let the doors slam. Let the friendships shatter. Not to punish you, but to purify you. You don't need their approval. You were approved before you arrived. The pain you endured in secret, it's going to make sense. The long nights where you begged God to explain the silence, He heard you. He watched over you like a father watches his child walk through fire, not because He enjoys the burning, but because He knows the fire cannot consume what He has anointed. Isaiah 43. 2 is your anchor. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. You're still here, not broken, refined. You've been through enough to break 10 people. But here you are, listening, seeking, craving truth. That's not survival instinct. That's spiritual awakening. Something in your soul remembers. Something deep is being stirred. And that something is your calling, reminding you that you're late, that it's time, that the book still bears your name and your page is next. The attacks didn't disqualify you. They trained you. You had to learn how to pray when no one else believed, how to stand when everything fell, how to cry and still get up. You developed spiritual muscle in silence. You were being trained like David in the field, away from the spotlight, but always under heaven's gaze. Nobody clapped for you, but the angels wrote it down. Every act of faith, every moment you resisted bitterness, every time you kept walking when your soul wanted to quit. It's recorded. Heaven's not looking for performance. It's looking for perseverance. And you, chosen one, have endured. That's why the angels are moving now. Because the time of testing is shifting into the time of revealing. And the enemy, he's panicking. He thought the abuse would shut you down. He thought the loss would destroy your praise. But what he didn't expect was your resilience. What he didn't count on was your awakening. You are dangerous now because you've survived what was designed to silence you. You didn't just walk through the fire. You learned how to call heaven down while standing in it. And that is why this hour is sacred. This moment is not emotional, it's prophetic. You are stepping into something older than time, a destiny that predates your pain. You've cried long enough. You've questioned long enough. Now heaven is answering with motion. The angels are not preparing to move. They're already dispatched. Assigned to the name heaven never forgot. Your name, chosen one. Listen closely, because what they called broken was actually sacred. The things you've been trying to hide, the cracks you've covered up, the shame you buried beneath smiles and silence, they were never evidence of your failure. They were proof of your divine construction. You were built differently. Formel for fear. Shaped through sorrow. Designed not to crumble under pressure, but to carry something holy that others couldn't. That trauma wasn't random. That heartbreak wasn't wasted. Heaven uses what hell tried to destroy. You've been through what theologians can't explain. Attacks without logic. Pain without closure. Rejection from those you would have bled for. You weren't just disappointed, you were dismantled. And yet, from the ruins, something sacred began to rise. The wilderness didn't just strip you, it sanctified you. The world saw dysfunction. God saw destiny. Those panic attacks you couldn't tell anyone about, they didn't disqualify you. Those moments of spiritual numbness, they weren't signs of backsliding, they were moments where your soul was being recalibrated. You were being emptied of everything that didn't align with your assignment. The loneliness, the silence, the isolation. It was surgery, not punishment. The pain had to hit deep, so the roots could go deeper. God never builds towers on shallow soil. So He let you be buried, not realizing that you were a seed. That dirt wasn't death, it was preparation. The rejection, the false accusations, the misunderstanding, heaven allowed it so you would stop reaching for human validation. Because you don't need their applause when you've got divine assignment. Chosen one. God anoints wounds. He takes what others call broken and turns it into the birthplace of miracles. The enemy thought, if he hit you hard enough, you'd stop praying. That if he sent enough betrayal, you'd stop believing. But he miscalculated, because instead of running from God, you crawled toward him. And even when your lips stopped moving, your tears interceded. Heaven heard, heaven recorded, heaven responded. You're sacred, not in spite of your scars, but because of them. Jesus didn't hide his wounds. After the resurrection, he showed them. Why? Because the proof of glory is the place of wounding, and so it is with you. You don't have to hide where you've been. You don't have to bury what you survived. That night you almost ended it all. That moment, you thought, no one saw you. God saw. God intervened. And he wrote that moment into your redemption story. You are a miracle, not just because you survived, but because you still believe. Some would have turned cold. Others would have turned to bitterness. But you stayed tender. You still hoped. You still reached for heaven, even when everything around you screamed to stop. That's what makes you chosen, not perfection, but persistence, not flawlessness, but faithfulness. You carry something sacred, something ancient, something dangerous to darkness. That's why the enemy has targeted your mind. That's why depression felt like a fog that wouldn't lift. That's why your dreams have been under assault. Because you don't just carry light, you carry oil, anointing. And oil is expensive. It is crushed, pressed, refined. Heaven watched as you were squeezed, as everything familiar was taken. And now, it's heaven's turn to respond. There is a wind blowing. Can you feel it? It's not just emotion, it's motion. Spiritual momentum. The angelic have been dispatched, not to rescue you from suffering, but to usher you into significance. What you've carried in silence is about to be revealed in power. The sacred cannot stay hidden forever. Don't run from your story. There is oil in your scars. They'll come asking, how did you survive? And you'll answer not with pride, but with purity. Because I was never alone. The God who anointed David in the field, who restored Peter after failure, who stood with Shadrach in the fire, he was with you too. And he never let go. You've been sacred from the start. That inner ache, that burning you feel right now, it's confirmation. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're chosen. Your wounds are not shame, they're prophecy. Type it below. I carry oil. Say it out loud if you must. Remind every lie that's ever whispered otherwise. I carry oil. I carry heaven's fire. I carry glory in cracked places. Heaven has moved. The angels know your name. And what was once called broken will now become a beacon. What was once pain will become purpose. And what was once hidden will become holy. Chosen one. There is something about you they could never quite explain. Something they noticed but couldn't put into words. A quiet presence. A piercing gaze. A peace that unsettled the chaotic. You never needed a platform to be powerful. Your very existence was disruptive to darkness. They saw the light in you, even if they couldn't name it. They reacted to it. Some admired you. Others resented you. But no one could ignore you. You walked into rooms and conversations shifted, not because you spoke, but because the atmosphere recognized you. The spirit realm doesn't wait for introductions. It already knows who carries fire. And you, chosen one, have always carried fire, even before you understood what was happening. Your life-provoked response. Friends betrayed you without cause. Teachers misunderstood you. Family members dismissed you. And for the longest time, you thought something was wrong with you. But nothing was wrong. Something was right. Something was radiant. And darkness hates light. The enemy always moves to silence what he fears. And he feared what you would become if you ever realized who you were. Your silence was never just quiet. It was strategic. God was guarding the sacred. You weren't born to blend in. That discomfort you've carried since childhood, the sense of being different, of not belonging, wasn't rejection. It was revelation. You were being revealed to yourself, little by little, layer by layer. You were made to reflect heaven. That's why darkness tried to smear your image. Through sin, through shame, through guilt. But the light was never extinguished, only covered. And now, in this moment, the covering is being removed, not by your strength, but by divine decree. The time has come. The light is breaking forth. What was hidden will now shine openly. Even those who judged you will be confused, because the same ones who questioned your worth will soon witness your rise. But don't become bitter. They were never your enemy. They were just blind to your identity. Even Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And in the same way, those who rejected you didn't see the royal blood running through your spiritual veins. They didn't know they were standing in the presence of a rising warrior. You didn't need titles or robes or stages. Your authority didn't come from earthly affirmation. It came from the throne room. And that's why the enemy trembled. Because you never needed a crown to be royal. You were born with it in your bones. Chosen one, the light in you is not your own. It is heaven's flame, and you are its carrier. You carry a disruptive anointing. You don't just walk into places, you confront atmospheres. You don't just survive seasons, you shift them. People are drawn to you, not because of your looks or charm, but because their spirits recognize something eternal in you. They feel safe around you, or they feel exposed. That's the mark of a chosen vessel. Even demons know your name. That's not arrogance, it's scriptural. Acts 19:15 tells of evil spirits, saying, "Jesus I know, and Paul I know." They recognize the ones who carried divine authority. And if hell knows your name, it's because heaven wrote it first. And heaven has never erased it. Through every failure, through every wrong turn, through every moment, you thought you forfeited your calling. Heaven remained faithful. Your light may have dimmed, but it never died. Because it wasn't lit by emotion. It was lit by God. And what God starts, He finishes. The radiance in you is rising, not for your fame, but for His glory. Don't run from it. Don't downplay it. Don't apologize for it. You are a city on a hill, a lamp that cannot be hidden. You don't need permission to shine. You have a mandate. And that mandate is waking up. This is not the time to shrink. This is the time to stand. What was once tolerated will now be transformed. What was once buried will now be birthed. What was once feared will now be faced with fire in your eyes and authority in your voice. You are not who you used to be, and you never will be again. The light has always been in you, but now it's being seen. Chosen one. Do you realize now? Every closed door, every delay, Every painful detour, it was all divinely engineered. Heaven was not ignoring you. Heaven was orchestrating timing. While you were weeping in the dark, God was shifting pieces in the light. You thought the delay meant denial. But it was never no, it was always not yet. You were never being rejected. You were being reserved. Heaven wasn't slow. It was strategic. Because what's being built in you isn't just for a moment, it's for a mantle. And mantles require maturity. Glory requires grounding. And you, chosen one, were never being held back. You were being rooted. There were places you wanted to go. Relationships you begged God to let stay. Opportunities you almost idolized. But He shut those doors not to punish you, but to protect you from premature exposure. You weren't ready. Not because you were weak, but because your strength hadn't yet been refined by fire. And God loves you too much to let you walk into greatness, half-developed. Do you understand now? Every divine delay was protection in disguise. When the job fell through, it wasn't failure. When the friend betrayed you, it wasn't sabotage. It was set up. Because your future can't be built on faulty foundations. And God knew what was coming long before you cried those tears. He counted the cost, saw the end from the beginning, and still said, "They're worth the wait." Chosen one, God's timing is not your enemy, it's your endorsement. If He's been silent, it's because something sacred is being prepared. And heaven doesn't rush preparation. When a vessel is going to carry fire, it must first survive the furnace. And you've survived more than most. You've waited through long winters. You've watched others get what you prayed for. You've been overlooked, underestimated, misunderstood. But you've also been sustained. That's what proves the hand of God is on you. Not your achievements, but your endurance. Others gave up. You didn't. Others lost faith. You kept showing up. Others cursed God. You clung to Him. Even through confusion. That's what separates the chosen from the crowd. Not talent, not charisma, but the kind of quiet obedience that heaven celebrates. Now look, can you sense it? The shift. It's subtle, but it's sacred. The kind of stirring that happens when angels begin to move. The delay is lifting. The divine alignment is coming into full view. The things that didn't make sense in past seasons will suddenly fit together like a holy pattern. The broken pieces, the missed calls, the lonely nights, they were all brushstrokes. And now the canvas is being revealed. Heaven has not forgotten your name. It has only been waiting for this precise moment in time. Because you're not being released into just another phase, you're being launched into fulfillment. Everything you lost will make sense. Everything you thought was wasted will become wealth in the spirit. And the time you spent weeping, God is returning it with joy, multiplied. This is the reaping of your endurance. And while others raced ahead, you were being rooted deep. So now that the winds blow, you won't be shaken. Others may have fruit, but you carry legacy. Others may have followers, but you carry fire. And heaven is about to make it visible, not to boast, but to bring others home. So stand in this moment with reverence. The delay is over. The gates are opening. The words spoken over your life, those ancient scrolls, they're being fulfilled right now. Don't miss this. Your obedience during the delay was the key to this door. You didn't need a stage to worship. You didn't need applause to keep believing. And because you remained faithful in private, heaven is bringing honor in public. Those who mocked you will marvel, not because of your success, but because of your surrender. God can trust you now, and that trust is about to become testimony. Chosen one, don't keep this word to yourself. If your spirit is burning, it's because you were meant to carry this fire. Subscribe now so you stay aligned with what heaven is unfolding. There is more, so much more, and what you're stepping into will require spiritual direction, prophetic reminders, and bold encouragement. Subscribe now and stay in the flow of this divine assignment, because this is only the beginning. Chosen one, let this settle deep into your soul. You were hidden for a reason, not ignored, not forgotten, hidden. Heaven doesn't hide what it has no use for. Heaven hides what carries too much value to be exposed prematurely. And you, yes, you are one of the hidden ones. One of those who were wrapped in divine camouflage while others ran ahead with noise and flash. You watched them rise. You cheered others on. You sat in the shadows and wondered, God, when will it be my time? And the silence screamed louder than any answer. But silence was never God's absence. It was His shadow, His covering, His concealment. Because what's precious gets protected. When Moses was born, his mother hid him. Not because he was weak, but because he was marked. The enemy was hunting destiny. So God used obscurity as a weapon. So it was with David, tending sheep while others strutted before the prophet. So it was with Joseph, locked in a prison while Pharaoh dreamed. So it is with you. You were hidden in plain sight, not because you lacked potential, but because you were saturated with purpose. And purpose takes time. God couldn't let them see you too soon, because they would have labeled you according to your process, not your prophecy. They would have called you broken before you were built, flawed before you were formed. So He covered you. He let you blend in. He let you be misunderstood, because what they couldn't see, they couldn't sabotage. Your camouflage was mercy. And now, the season of hiddenness is shifting. The Spirit is calling your name, the same one that's written in the book, the same name the angels have carried like a sealed scroll. That name is being spoken again, not just in heaven but in the earth. Creation is beginning to respond. People you've never met will begin to recognize something in you, something ancient, something eternal, something alive. But don't be surprised when old spaces feel tight, when familiar environments no longer fit, when conversations you once enjoyed now drain you. That's not pride, it's prophecy. The oil on your life is rising, and the jar you were once poured into is too small. You can't be hidden when heaven says it's time to be seen. And this unveiling isn't for ego, it's for assignment. The time of preparation was not wasted. The years you spent in spiritual silence were not empty. God was storing glory in your bones. And now, He's sending you not with noise, but with weight, not with clout, but with authority. And authority doesn't announce itself. It walks into rooms and darkness flees. Chosen one, you've been approved in the unseen. And now the seen must come into agreement. But don't rush this moment. Walk with reverence. Because the angels are moving, they're not preparing, they've already been dispatched. Assigned to your next step, stationed on your path, charged with protecting what is being birthed. You're not moving into just another season. You're stepping into divine synchronization, and every delay now turns to delivery. Every door that once resisted, you will now swing open, not because you knocked harder, but because heaven whispered your name on the other side. Favor isn't forced. It follows the faithful, and you chosen one, have been faithful in the dark. So now, God is lighting your path in ways that will shock those who thought you were finished. The hiding was holy, but now, the hidden one rises. So, if your spirit is stirred, it's because the time is now, not next year, not someday. Now, the ground is trembling beneath your feet. The air feels charged. That's not emotion, it's the echo of heaven saying, move. And every time God says move, angels respond. They don't hesitate. They don't negotiate. They act, and they're moving for you. If you feel the shift, if something inside you is awakening, then type this prophetic number below. 444. A number of open doors, of divine clarity, of angelic movement. Type it to mark this moment in faith. Type it to seal the alignment that's happening now. 444. This is the hour of unveiling. This isn't hype. This is holy ground. Don't miss the significance of what's unfolding. You didn't wait this long for nothing. You didn't survive all that warfare to stay hidden forever. The angels have waited for this moment too, and now they're moving on assignment, carrying the very promises spoken over you before you were born. You were never just a name. You were a call wrapped in skin, a divine sound in human form, and the world is about to hear it. Chosen one, you've spent more time alone than anyone around you knows. Not just physically, spiritually, emotionally. There were rooms full of people, yet your soul stood alone. Conversations that danced around laughter, while your heart echoed with silence. You've smiled while breaking, served while bleeding, and pressed forward while every fiber in you longed to rest. But that solitude was never random. It was sacred. You had to walk alone, not because you were unworthy of love, but because your calling was too weighty to be understood by the crowd. The path you were chosen for could not be paved by popularity. It had to be carved in the quiet. Every echo had to be silenced, so you could learn the voice of the one who called you. You wondered why friendships failed without warning, why those you trusted the most withdrew when you needed them most. It was God. He didn't want you anchored to people who couldn't handle your next level. He removed them, not to harm you, but to heal you, because some connections were based on your weakness and would have never survived your strength. Chosen one, the isolation was training. You weren't being punished. You were being purified. When God sets someone apart, He takes them through a path of pruning. You didn't lose people, you lost distractions. You didn't lose opportunities, you lost illusions. And in the stillness, you found something priceless. Clarity, intimacy, unshakable identity, no longer defined by applause. You learned to live for His approval. There's a fire that only falls in the quiet places. Elijah didn't find God in the wind or the earthquake or the firestorm, but in the still, small voice. That's where you've been. In the cleft of the rock, hidden from noise, unseen by men, but fully visible to God. He has been speaking, not loudly, but consistently, not with shouts, but with signals. And you've learned to listen. Now you know the difference between man's affirmation and heaven's direction. This depth cannot be taught in books. It is forged in valleys, and you've walked through your share, some by choice, others by divine command. But every step alone was watched. Heaven never lost sight of you. The angels stood close, silent, waiting, because isolation wasn't your destination, it was your transformation. And now, you don't walk in brokenness. You walk in discernment. You see things others miss. You sense shifts in spirit others are blind to, because silence taught you to see, and solitude trained your ears to hear the sound of destiny even when the world is screaming lies. You no longer need noise to feel significant, because you've seen the value of stillness. There's a reason Moses met God in the wilderness, a reason David wrote psalms in caves, a reason Jesus withdrew from the crowds to commune with the Father. Solitude is where God shapes leaders. And you, chosen one, Ari, no exception. The fire on your life didn't come from crowds. It came from the crushing, the isolation, the wilderness nights when only God was left, and He was enough. You'll never forget what you learned in the silence. It built something in you that cannot be faked. Integrity, resilience, stillness. And these are the qualities required for what's coming next. Because now that your feet are steady and your voice is clear, God can use you without fear of collapse. The one who allowed the silence is now ready to speak through you. But you'll never forget the lessons of walking alone. They're sacred, they're permanent, and they've made you not just available but ready. Chosen one, heaven waited for this hour. Everything that has been happening in your life, every shift, every silence, every storm has led here. This moment was etched in eternity, long before you ever arrived on earth. Before you made your first mistake, before you learned your first lesson, heaven was waiting for this exact intersection of your spirit and your season, because the time wasn't right before. The atmosphere hadn't aligned. The people necessary for your next were not in place. The spiritual tension wasn't fully ripe. But now the hour has come. You can feel it, even if you can't explain it. Something in your spirit has been stirring. The ordinary no longer satisfies. The familiar feels foreign. The dreams you buried have begun whispering again. Louder this time. Not as wishful fantasies, but as prophecies pushing through the surface of your soul. You're restless, but not lost. You're being summoned. Heaven doesn't move by accident. When God moves, it's because a clock in the spirit has struck a new hour. And in this hour, your name has been read aloud again. There are moments when heaven holds meetings on earth's behalf. Moments when scrolls are opened, when destinies are examined, and when assignments are reassigned. Your life has not been random, it has been under review. And in that sacred council, your name was spoken again, not in rebuke, but in readiness. The time is now. There is a reason why certain things are no longer functioning the way they used to. Why you can't go back to what used to work. Why old doors no longer open, and new ones seem to swing wide without you even trying. It's because heaven has reauthorized your path. What was once pending has now been approved. This is not revival. It is release. Heaven waited for you to grow, to heal, to surrender. And the moment you did, even when you felt unworthy, the courtroom of the King declared, now, angels, who once watched in stillness, are now moving. Assignments are shifting. Territories are being restructured. What had been withheld is now being dispatched. This is the kind of hour prophets long to see. The kind of shift that causes demons to tremble. The kind of alignment that cannot be reversed. Because when God says the hour has come, no power in hell can delay it. You were never waiting for time. Time was waiting for you. There's a mystery in the way heaven works. It often hides the ones it will later highlight. It buries the ones it will crown. And when the hour comes, it doesn't whisper, it roars. Not in volume, but in velocity. Things begin to move with sudden force. Relationships change overnight. Opportunities rise from nowhere. Dreams gain shape. Words spoken over your life begin to chase you down. The speed of heaven can be terrifying when it finally activates. You feel the urgency now, don't you? A holy pressure, a sacred tension. You're no longer fighting the same battles. You're not even thinking the same way. That's not coincidence, that's calibration. Your soul has sensed what your mind is just now, understanding something divine has begun, and you're in the middle of it. God didn't forget you. He was preparing you for this. Some will say it came out of nowhere, that you suddenly stepped into something, but heaven knows there was nothing sudden about it. There were years of crushing, seasons of silence, days when you didn't think you'd make it to tomorrow. You wept for this hour. You bled for this hour. You fasted, not even knowing why your spirit was groaning, but now it all makes sense. The hour that heaven waited for has arrived, and you are not who you were. You don't move like you used to. You don't respond like before. What once intimidated you now seems small. What once wounded you now empowers you. That's how you know the shift is real. When your perspective is no longer shaped by pain, but by promise. This isn't just your hour, it's your turning point. The things you couldn't talk about will become your testimony. The places you were rejected will remember your name. The ones who walked away will watch from a distance as you rise, not because you wanted to prove them wrong, but because heaven had written this moment long ago. Chosen one. Heaven waited for you to become unshakable. And now that you are, there's no going back. Chosen one. The scrolls have been opened. What was once sealed in mystery is now being activated in motion. The pages that held the details of your divine assignment, written before you ever breathed your first breath, those pages are no longer dormant. Heaven has unlocked what was hidden. The blueprint has been released, and the angelic realm is now responding in full obedience. You may not have seen it with your eyes, but your spirit knows it's real. You've felt the tension, the restlessness, the sudden sense that you're being pushed, pulled, summoned. That's not just emotion, it's evidence. The scrolls bearing your name have been unsealed, and the orders have gone out. Angels are not waiting, they are moving. Heaven's hosts operate with military precision. They don't hesitate. They don't negotiate. When a scroll is opened and a name is read, they move swiftly. They go to war, not to figure out who you are, but to fulfill what was already written. You've been assigned angelic aid, not because you're lucky, but because you're listed. Your name is in the book. The assignment has been triggered, and the entire spiritual realm has shifted around it. What seemed dormant in your life wasn't dead. It was sealed, protected, guarded until this exact moment. You prayed for acceleration, but heaven had to wait for activation. Now the seal is broken, and what was once waiting is now walking toward you. Connections, doors, visions. They're no longer ideas. They're appointments. You are not being thrown into your future. You're being led into fulfillment. The scroll carries more than instructions. It carries authority. Every word written over you, every calling declared before time began, has weight in the spirit. And once the seal is broken, no power in hell can reseal it. It must come to pass. That's why the warfare has intensified. The enemy knows the scrolls have been read. He heard the angelic commands, and now he's terrified. Because heaven is no longer preparing, heaven is proceeding. The things that once resisted you will no longer be able to stand in your way. The barriers that mocked your prayers will crumble under the weight of divine timing. The people who overlooked you will not recognize the oil you now carry. Not because you changed your voice, your clothes, or your style, but because your scroll has shifted. You're no longer walking by survival, you're walking by summons. This moment isn't just about elevation, it's about enforcement. God is enforcing what He wrote. The enemy doesn't get to debate it. Your circumstances don't get to delay it. It is written, and when something is written by God, it cannot be erased by man. Your job is not to strive. Your job is to walk boldly, to step forward, even when you don't see the whole map, because the scrolls carry both the destination and the direction. This is why you had to wait. This is why you were hidden. This is why the silence felt endless. Because the weight of your calling demanded heaven's perfect moment. And now that moment has arrived. Feel this deeply. You are walking in fulfillment, not based on emotion, but on eternal record. You were never forgotten. Your scroll was never misplaced. It was held, preserved, timed, and now it has been read aloud. The angels who stood in silence are now moving in formation. They are not coming to bless your plans. They are fulfilling God's. And you are the vessel. This is why your prayers have changed. Why your dreams feel heavier. Why your atmosphere is being rearranged. Your scroll has been activated, and your life is now catching up with what heaven has already declared. The delay was never punishment. It was protocol. And now protocol has been completed. This is your moment of movement. Don't shrink back. Don't hesitate. The doors opening before you are not random, they are responses. Heaven is responding to what it has written. The favor you're about to walk in is not optional, it's ordained. The shifts happening around you are not coincidences, they are confirmations. You are in divine flow. Type this in the comments as a bold declaration. It is written, because when it's written by God, it must come to pass. You're not just living, you're fulfilling. You're not just waking up, you're awakening. The scrolls have been opened, and the angels are already moving. Chosen one, prepare yourself, for they will ask where you came from. Those who once overlooked you, who saw your struggle but never your strength, who assumed your silence meant surrender, they will witness your emergence. And they will marvel. They'll wonder how someone they counted out suddenly carries such power, wisdom, and clarity. But they don't realize you didn't just appear, you were being prepared. Every quiet season was shaping your voice. Every hidden battle was sharpening your discernment. Every tear you cried was watering a destiny they couldn't see. You've never been loud about your process. You didn't announce every move. You didn't beg for validation. You walked through the fire without making it your identity. And now, as the smoke clears, the glow around you isn't artificial, it's refined, it's divine. It's earned through obedience and warfare. That's why when you begin to rise, it will shock them. Because you didn't rise with applause, you rose through ashes. What they thought was your end was actually your resurrection. And now, as you begin to move into rooms you once only prayed for, the people around you will struggle to explain it. They'll try to connect it to something they understand: talent, effort, favor, but they won't be able to grasp the truth. Because what's happening in your life isn't natural, it's supernatural. You are being unveiled. Chosen one. Heaven has removed the veil. The layers of hiding, the cocoon of silence, it's been torn open. And what emerges is not the old version of you, patched together with worldly ambition. What rises is the real you, the anointed, assigned, appointed you, not created by followers or fame, but sculpted by fire, silence, and sacred encounters. They won't recognize you, not because your face has changed, but because your essence has shifted. You walk differently now. You speak with weight. You listen with wisdom. There's something in your presence that unsettles the familiar, not because you're proud, but because you're prepared. And preparation changes posture. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. You walk in knowing you carry something from God. That shift will make some uncomfortable, and that's okay. The same Jesus who grew in Nazareth was rejected in his hometown. They said, "Isn't this the carpenter's son?" Because they couldn't reconcile the glory they saw with the history they remembered. But what they remembered was no longer relevant. Jesus had stepped into his fullness, and so have you. You've been growing in silence, stretching in the shadows. But now it's time for manifestation. The ones who laughed will look again. The ones who walked away will hear of your rising. And the ones who tried to bury your name will see God raise it high, not to make you famous, but to make his glory known through you. This is not about spotlight. It's about surrender. Your yes is birthing results that only heaven could orchestrate. And this is only the beginning. You will move with precision in this next phase. Not rushing, not competing, just aligned. You'll find that things begin to fall into place without your effort. Conversations will come to you. Invitations will find you. Resources will flow to you. Why? Because you're in sync with the scroll. You're not chasing, you're following. And what you're following is written. God is revealing you, not because you're better, but because you're ready. And readiness is rare. Many want promotion. Few are prepared for responsibility. But you've been tested. You've been tempered. You've learned how to stay low, to move slow, to listen deeply. And now that heaven can trust you, it will show you. You're about to enter rooms you didn't network for. You're about to walk through doors you didn't have the strength to build, because God is honoring your consistency. So don't be surprised when they ask, "Where did you come from?" Answer with peace. Answer with purpose, but never with pride, because you didn't make this happen. Heaven did. And if this word is confirming what you've been sensing, if you know deep down that this is your moment, then help others find what you've just found. Like this post, share this word, subscribe to the channel. Don't keep this revelation to yourself. Someone else is still in the shadows, wondering if God sees them. Be the light that helps them see the truth. You've been released, and you're not going back. This is the rise of the hidden ones, the return of the rejected, the revival of the refined. And you are one of them, a chosen vessel, a called-out light, a royal priesthood. You don't need to defend your elevation. God is your vindication. And when they ask where you came from, just smile and point upward, because your story didn't start here, and your strength didn't come from here. It came from the one who saw you when no one else did, the one who wrote your name, the one who is now revealing it. Chosen one. This is the breaking of the silence. You have carried the weight of unanswered questions, prayers that echoed into the night and returned without reply. You've stood in seasons where the heavens felt closed, where the voice you once heard so clearly seemed distant, where signs became scarce and your soul began to wonder, did I miss it? But you didn't miss it. You didn't fail. You didn't wander beyond God's reach. The silence was never rejection. It was refinement. You weren't being ignored. you were being instructed, because there are lessons only learned in stillness, depth that only comes through waiting, power that is forged, not in the noise of spiritual activity, but in the long, quiet obedience where only trust remains. That's where he had you. He didn't stop speaking. He changed the method. God's loudest movements are often whispered. His deepest work is usually invisible. And you, chosen one, were in a season of spiritual surgery. He was cutting what couldn't go with you. He was extracting bitterness, uprooting doubt, rewiring the way you see yourself. He was preparing a vessel not for a season, but for an era. There's a difference between punishment and process. Punishment is for rebellion. Process is for purpose. And the silence you walked through was purpose, not punishment. You didn't hear him because he was working beneath the surface. The potter doesn't speak while he's spinning clay. He shapes in quiet. He molds in the absence of applause. He builds strength when no one sees the strain. And now, you are hearing him again, not with your ears, but with your spirit, because your senses have shifted. Your discernment has been sharpened. You no longer need signs to believe. You've learned to walk by conviction. That's why the silence is breaking. Because now, when he speaks, you will move, not with doubt, but with certainty. This is a new kind of clarity. It's not emotional, it's eternal. You know who you are. You know what you carry. You know what you can no longer tolerate. You're no longer confused about what must stay and what must go. The confusion wasn't permanent. It was seasonal, designed to make you desperate for his voice again. And now that you've found it, you'll never take it for granted. Chosen one, the veil has lifted. The fog is clearing. God is speaking again, and this time, you're hearing him without filters. There are assignments being whispered now, alignments being revealed, places you once avoided. You're now drawn to people you thought were your future. You now see were just a lesson. The patterns have shifted. The rhythm is new, and the voice that once felt far has returned in power. You're not the same. When God speaks now, it confirms what he already planted in you during the silence. He's not giving you something new. He's activating what was buried. He's watering seeds that were sown in pain. And those seeds are sprouting, not in shallow soil, but in deep, rooted places. That's why this next move will carry weight. You're not guessing anymore. You're not asking everyone for advice. You're not double-checking what God already confirmed. You know, and that knowing is not arrogance, it's alignment. You've walked through too much fire to be casual with divine instructions. Now, when he speaks, you move. When he whispers, you obey. When he redirects, you let go. This is not the season for delays. This is the hour of acceleration. Because you're not the only one who's been waiting. Creation itself has been groaning for your emergence. The realm of purpose has been holding its breath for your yes. And now that your ears are clear, your steps will follow. God is not just speaking to you, he is speaking through you. You'll sense it in conversations. You'll feel it in rooms. People will come to you for answers, not knowing why, not realizing that in the silence, God was planting wisdom in you, insight that doesn't come from study alone, but from surrender. And now that silence has broken, the voice that shaped you will begin to shape others through you. You've become a carrier of clarity. Your words will cut through confusion. Your presence will restore order. Your prayers will unlock atmospheres, because you know the cost of hearing God again. And that reverence cannot be taught. It is born in the silence, and now it is released in the sound. This is the sound of a chosen one who knows the voice of their king. Chosen one, your assignment just shifted. What was once an idea is now an instruction. What you once carried as a burden has now become a baton. You are no longer waiting to be used. You are being sent, not with fanfare or flashing lights, but with holy clarity, quiet confidence, a steady, burning fire, the kind that can't be faked or fabricated. You didn't create this calling. You were born into it. Something has moved in the heavens. The terrain around you has changed. You may not fully understand it yet, but your spirit knows. What once worked no longer works. What once felt aligned now feels expired. That's not failure, it's fulfillment. Your assignment has evolved. God is not just elevating your visibility, He is deepening your responsibility. The same way Jesus shifted from carpenter to Christ, from anonymity to authority, so too are you being repositioned. And that shift is costly. It requires separation. It requires stretching. It demands a level of surrender you didn't have in previous seasons. But heaven knows you're ready. This is not a demotion. It's not confusion. It's activation. You've been entrusted with more, not for your comfort, but for His kingdom. And that's why old patterns are collapsing. Old mindsets are being confronted. You can no longer sit in circles that coddle dysfunction. You can no longer speak words that hold no weight. The shift has happened, and you are not who you were. Chosen one. Your hands have been repurposed. Where you once held wounds, now you carry weapons. Where you once clutched pain, now you carry power. You are being deployed as a spiritual solution in places still plagued by confusion. You are an answer, a signal, a light that doesn't blink when the storms come, because your light was refined in storms. This shift is about function, not fame. God is not interested in building your platform. He's building His agenda through your obedience. That's why this next season will feel different. Because you are not being called to do more, you're being called to do what matters. You will speak less, but say more. Move slower, but further. Do less visibly, but accomplish more eternally. Your presence will begin to provoke responses. Some will be drawn to you. Others will retreat from you. Not because you changed your tone, but because your oil has increased. And oil makes people respond. It makes demons react, because oil is proof of crushing. And you, chosen one, have been crushed for this call. You didn't just survive trials. You've been commissioned through them. Your assignment has shifted because you have shifted. You're no longer fueled by emotion. You're anchored in revelation. You don't need confirmation to obey. You hear and you move. And because of that alignment, heaven can trust you with weightier words, deeper realms, and higher authority. This isn't just about doing something new. It's about becoming someone unrecognizable to hell. You're no longer on standby. You're on mission. And with that mission comes warfare. Don't expect the enemy to stay silent. He has seen the seal on your soul. He heard the pages turn when your scroll was unsealed. He knows the level of impact you're about to carry. And he's afraid, not because of your charisma, but because of your consecration. You've died to things others are still playing with. That's why this shift is different. It's not trendy. It's timeless. It's the fulfillment of prayers prayed in pain, tears shed in secret, groans uttered with no words. And now, heaven says, move. But this movement is different. It's not for recognition. It's not for applause. It's a quiet, sacred commissioning. A whisper from heaven that you've been prepared for more than you ever imagined. Not more tasks, more impact. Not more exposure, more weight. You've been taught by silence, promoted by obedience, endorsed by endurance. This shift doesn't announce itself with noise. It manifests in presence. You'll find people looking at you differently. Spaces adjusting around you. Not because you've changed clothes, but because your spirit now carries weight. Authority isn't volume, it's essence. And you, chosen one, are walking in authority, forged in fire. You've been called to disrupt patterns, to carry clarity into chaos, to deliver truth where deception has ruled. That's why your assignment has shifted. The level of influence you're about to walk in requires discernment, not popularity, purity, not performance. This is not the time to copy what others are doing. This is the time to listen to heaven with undivided ears. What worked for them won't work for you. Because you've been chosen for something tailor-made. You're not a duplicate. You're a divine original. And your new assignment requires sensitivity to the Spirit like never before. There will be moments when you're misunderstood. That's okay. You were misunderstood before you were born again. This time, you're not here to explain yourself. You're here to obey. Chosen one. It's time to accept the mantle. If your spirit is trembling with confirmation, then type this number in the comments. 999. A symbol of finality and the birthing of what's next. 999 says, I accept the shift. I receive the assignment. Let the scrolls bear witness. Let the angels take note. Let the darkness take cover. Because the chosen one has stepped into their next. Chosen one. You've been given keys. Not ordinary keys, not the kind that open physical doors or gates made by hands. These are kingdom keys. The kind heaven entrusts only to those who have been through fire and didn't curse the flame. Keys that do not rust, because they are forged in obedience. Keys that shift atmospheres, unlock callings, and dismantle darkness. You didn't ask for them. You didn't earn them by merit. They were given by grace and by divine right. Because authority is not claimed, it is bestowed, and heaven has seen your endurance, your posture, your secret obedience when there was no spotlight, no applause, no support. God saw, and heaven responded. You've passed tests others never saw. You laid down things that cost you deeply. You surrendered dreams you held tightly. And in the invisible realm, those decisions echoed like thunder. Now, the evidence is surfacing, not in pride, but in power. Quiet, unshakable, immovable power. This power isn't loud. It doesn't parade. It walks in stillness and speaks with weight. When you open your mouth, chains respond, not because of your eloquence, but because of your authority. Because the one who gave you the keys backs every word you speak in alignment with him. You are no longer begging for breakthrough. You are the one who carries the code. You've become a gatekeeper in the spirit. You walk with a presence that can no longer be faked or borrowed. You speak with clarity because you've lived through confusion. You discern what others overlook. You feel shifts before they surface. Because heaven has entrusted you with insight that's not found in books, it's downloaded through surrender. These keys are not decorative. They are functional. You will unlock people. You will break cycles. You will walk into places bound by fear and release peace. You'll step into rooms that haven't known truth in years and speak a single sentence that tears down decades of deception. Not because you're trying, but because you're carrying the keys. These keys give you access, but they also give you responsibility. What you bind will be bound. What you loose will be loosed. That is not metaphor, that is the word of the King. You are no longer operating under permission. You are operating under commission. You've been authorized. It's why your prayers have changed. They no longer come from desperation. They come from dominion. You don't just ask, you command. You don't just wish, you declare. Because your words have weight now, not just volume weight. And in the spirit realm, weight is currency. Chosen one. You are no longer asking the enemy to let go, you're ordering him. The same God who handed Peter the keys after confession has now extended them to you after consecration. Your confession of faith. Yes, but also your commitment to obedience. Your refusal to bow to culture. Your resistance to compromise. Your decision to still believe when nothing made sense. That's what qualified you. Not perfection, but faithfulness. These keys give you access to atmospheres. You'll begin to walk into places and know what's off without anyone speaking. You'll begin to see in others what they haven't yet seen in themselves. Because the keys you've been given don't just open, they reveal. They bring light to what's been hidden. They expose what's been tolerated. They call forth what's been buried. That's why you've felt such a deep pull lately. You thought you were just changing, but heaven was placing weight in your spirit. It wasn't emotional, it was foundational. You are being established, not for a moment, but for a movement. These keys are not for comfort, they are for command. You'll be called upon unexpectedly. You'll be placed in situations you never asked for. But the doors that open for you will not open for others because your keys are specific. They match the lock of a generation bound by fear, confusion, and false light. You've been given the authority to walk through locked doors and not knock, just turn. And behind those doors are assignments that will terrify your flesh but ignite your spirit. Because God didn't give you keys to admire, He gave them to use. So move with discernment. Don't flaunt your authority. Don't argue to be understood. The one with keys doesn't need to prove possession. They only need to move in purpose. The angels know what you carry. Hell does too. And neither is confused. The only question now is, will you use what's been placed in your hand? Because the keys are not for display. They are a call, a charge, a signal from heaven that what you unlock, no man can shut. And what you shut, no voice on earth can reopen. Walk with reverence. You've been given keys. Chosen one. Your presence will disturb darkness. You will not have to speak. You will not have to announce your arrival or explain your purpose. Simply entering the space, walking in full alignment, carrying what you carry, will shake the unseen. Demons will sense it. Spirits will scatter. The atmosphere will respond, not because you are dramatic, but because you are divine. The light you carry is not a soft glow, it is a weapon. It is not for decoration, it is for confrontation. And every place that has been hosting darkness in silence will feel the friction when you arrive. You will not even understand at times why people shift around you. Why? Tension rises without a word. It's because your very presence confronts what has been comfortably hidden. You were never called to blend in. You were not made to adapt to environments. You were made to transform them. What they call vibes, you recognize as spiritual climates. You don't just walk into rooms, you walk into realms, and the realms respond. Because the one who sent you walks in with you. The authority you carry does not ask for permission. It declares, "This space belongs to the kingdom." You weren't always aware of this. You once thought you were just sensitive, that you were overreacting, that maybe it was just anxiety, or insecurity, or some strange coincidence. But now you know, now you see clearly. Your sensitivity was spiritual. It was heaven sharpening your discernment. You were never just picking up energy, you were discerning warfare. You're not emotional. You're wired for battle. Your presence disrupts. It causes unrest in systems that have been comfortable oppressing others. It breaks illusions people didn't even realize they were living in. You will walk in and feel a wall. That's resistance. That's confirmation. That's your call to stand firm, not to retreat. There will be moments when your presence alone delivers people, when you speak truth in a tone so still, it pierces without volume. You won't need to shout to shift things. You've been given a voice of fire, a word that will burn away what's false without scorching the soul. That is rare. That is dangerous. That is holy. Chosen one, do not shrink from this impact. You were not made to be liked. You were made to be light. And light doesn't ask darkness if it's welcome. It shows up. It shines. It exposes. And in that exposure, freedom becomes possible. People may not understand it, but their spirits will recognize it. Some will weep. Some will flee. Some will fight it. But no one will ignore it. Because what you carry demands a response. This is why some doors didn't open for you. Not because you were unqualified, but because the darkness behind them wasn't ready to be disturbed. Some connections ghosted you, not because of something wrong with you, but because their spirit felt what yours carried. And rather than face transformation, they chose distance. That's not rejection. That's protection for them and for you. You've been entrusted with a light that convicts. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't entertain. It confronts. And confrontation isn't always loud, it's presence. Jesus didn't always preach with words. Sometimes, his silence disturbed entire religious systems. Sometimes, his presence in a room caused people to confess what they had hidden for years. That same mantle rests on you. This is why you've been set apart. This is why you don't fit in most circles. Why the room shifts when you speak. Why laughter dies down when you walk in. It's not that you're unapproachable, it's that you carry a different atmosphere. Your presence forces people to decide. Will they bow or will they back away? Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink to keep people comfortable. Comfort is not your mission. Conviction is, and conviction doesn't condemn, it awakens. Your very life will become a mirror. People will see what's been off in their own lives just by being near yours. And some will thank you. Others will avoid you. Both are forms of impact. Understand this. You are a divine disruption. You don't always need a sermon. Sometimes, your yes to God is louder than any message you could preach. Sometimes, your refusal to compromise speaks louder than any argument. Sometimes, your peace will be the loudest rebuke to chaos in a room. Because what you carry is not personality, it's presence. God has entrusted you with the weight of his nearness. You won't always feel it in emotion, but it's always there. And when you step into spaces where the enemy has ruled for years, he will feel it. He will react. He will try to distract you, intimidate you, provoke you. But do not be moved. The fact that darkness is disturbed proves that light has entered, and you are that light. Not a flicker, not a spark, a blazing, undeniable, heaven-sent light. You are the lamp that can no longer be hidden, the torch that others will find their way by, the fire that causes systems of oppression to shake. Chosen one, your presence is prophecy. You are walking fulfillment of everything the enemy hoped would be aborted in you. Your presence is the answer to prayers your ancestors prayed in silence. Your presence is God saying, I haven't forgotten. I still raise up deliverers. I still send warriors. I still move through the yielded. Walk boldly, not arrogantly, boldly. You don't need to chase power. You carry it. You don't need to seek recognition. You were recognized in heaven long before anyone knew your name. And you don't need to fear opposition. If darkness trembles when you walk in, it means light has come, and light does not retreat. Chosen one. They'll try, but they won't prevail. The attacks aren't over. The resistance hasn't stopped. But there's a shift now in how they land. The darts don't pierce like they used to. The whispers don't wound like before. Because the version of you they once had access to no longer exists. The one who doubted, questioned, hesitated, that one has been buried in the fire. What stands now is refined, tested, and immovable. The enemy has seen this coming. Long before you recognized the magnitude of your assignment, darkness was watching, calculating, positioning distractions and disguises. Why? Because your emergence would cost them territory. You're not just a believer. You're a breaker. You don't carry mere faith, you carry force. And force like that doesn't just rise, it disrupts. That's why so much hit you all at once. Seasons of confusion, people turning on you, repeated losses, long silences. You felt abandoned, but in reality, you were under high surveillance. The kingdom of darkness couldn't stop what was written, but it tried to delay what was promised. And how did it do that? By launching chaos around you, in you, through people close to you. Yet none of it worked. Because what was meant to destroy you became your discipline. What was meant to confuse you trained your discernment. What should have shattered your faith made it sharper. That's why the enemy is furious. Not only did you survive, you learned, you grew, you became dangerous. Now they're trying again, but the rules have changed. You're no longer reacting, you're ruling. You're not guessing, you're governing. The authority you now carry was birthed in battle. You didn't read about it. You lived through it. That's what makes your presence confrontational to every spiritual system built on lies. You are not returning to the war, you're commanding from the victory. This is what divine protection looks like. Not a life free from struggle, but a soul that cannot be broken. The weapons still form. The enemies still gather, but none of them prosper. Because what you now walk in is inheritance, and inheritance is unearned. But enforced. Heaven has enforced its decree over your life. Isaiah 54:17 is not just a comforting verse, it's your current reality. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. You are not surviving because you're lucky. You're enduring because you're sealed. And what God seals, no attack can steal. Even when it looks like the enemy is winning, remember, heaven is never late. Every attack that rises must bow to the authority of the one who spoke your name before time began. The enemy didn't forget your past. He fears your future. He keeps trying, because he knows if you keep going, something unstoppable will be born. You, not the version of you that settled for survival, but the one who rules in spiritual dominion, the one who no longer needs a platform to speak or an audience to validate. You walk in fire, not because of ego, but because of essence. You've become the thing they feared you'd awaken to, or through chosen one. But don't expect the attacks to stop. They'll evolve. They'll come dressed as opportunities, as distraction, as familiar voices, as false peace. But now, your discernment is sharp. You no longer run from battles, you recognize them. You no longer react to warfare, you wield authority over it. You know how to stand. And stand you will. When others fold, when others fear, when others faint, you will remain. Not in your own power, but because the King who called you fights for you. You were never meant to win in your strength. You were meant to stand in his shadow. That's why the enemy is frustrated. He tried to bury you in grief. You turned it into glory. He tried to drown you in disappointment. You found purpose in the flood. He tried to isolate you in pain. You found revelation in the silence. Nothing worked, because what's sealed by heaven is sustained by it. And now, there's nothing left to prove. You are not called to fight for your identity. You're called to flow in it. What's written cannot be rewritten. What's spoken cannot be revoked. God has already delivered the verdict, and angels have already gone ahead. There is no battle he's not already conquered. There is no curse he hasn't already reversed. So when they rise up again, and they will just remember, it's too late. The oil is flowing. The fire is lit. The assignment is active. And you, chosen one, are already walking in the proof that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. If this word echoed deep in your spirit, if you know you are walking in what was once only promised, then act now. Like this message. Share it with someone who needs strength. And subscribe so you never miss another divine moment. And type in the comments, I cannot lose. Let hell hear it. Let heaven mark it. Let your own soul remember. You cannot lose. Chosen one. The crown is not optional. You were born with royalty woven into your spirit, not as a metaphor, not as a poetic flourish, but as a literal truth in the spirit realm. The authority you carry is not an accessory, it is identity. You were made to reign. You were crafted for dominion. Heaven did not write your name in the book to be a spectator. You are a ruler in a kingdom not built by hands. And this crown, this inheritance, it cannot be passed down to another. It cannot be worn by anyone else. The mantle is yours. The seat is yours. The territory is yours. You cannot run from it. You cannot trade it. You cannot bury it in the sand and hope no one notices. To wear the crown is to accept the weight, but to reject it is to risk everything. There is no neutral ground anymore. You are in the hour of decision, and the earth is groaning for the emergence of the chosen ones. To delay now is to drift. To excuse now is to exit your moment. You've been entrusted with influence not yet revealed, authority not yet fully released, and time, though granted, is not limitless. The generations before you paid a price for your position. Some bled in prayer. Some fasted in isolation. Some died without ever seeing the fulfillment of what they carried in faith. And now, you stand on the edge of that legacy. Heaven is watching to see if you will say, yes. If you will rise. If you will claim what has already been marked as yours. You weren't just chosen, you were prepared. The testing, the stripping, the long silences, they weren't signs of rejection. They were part of the coronation. Every king is crowned in private before they're revealed in public. That's why it felt lonely. That's why it felt endless. Because God doesn't crown the immature. He crowns the faithful. And you've been found faithful. Not perfect, but faithful. Not flawless, but willing. And that willingness has brought you here to the place where destiny demands a decision. Will you wear what God has already formed for you? The crown is not for decoration. It is for responsibility. It carries a weight, a cost, a calling. And those who wear it must walk differently. You cannot live as you did before. You cannot think as you did before. The conversations, the environments, the habits, they must match the royalty you now carry. There's a difference between surviving and reigning. You've survived, but now you must rise. You must govern what you used to pray about. You must build what you used to only see in visions. You must step into the position heaven has waited to reveal. Because you were never meant to just escape. You were meant to establish. This is your charge. Rise. Take your place. Wear what was formed in fire. Speak what was hidden in silence. Carry what crushed others. Rule not with ego, but with reverence. Not with noise, but with clarity. Not for fame, but for the advancement of the kingdom. And if you do not, then what you carry will remain unclaimed. Not by another. There is no replacement for your assignment. But it will remain dormant, silent, like a song never sung, a light never switched on. And the cost will not only be yours, it will ripple through generations. This is why the crown is not optional. This is why the enemy fought you so early, so violently. He knew, he saw, he recognized the signature of heaven on your soul. And if he could not destroy you, he would distract you, delay you, tempt you to settle. But no more. Now you know, now you see, now you've heard the call and seen the path. And what you do next will mark the course of everything to come. Your crown has been prepared. It fits no one else. It matches only your name. Your obedience is not a suggestion. It is the only route forward. You've worn shame long enough. You've bowed to fear long enough. You've whispered when you were meant to declare. Now, stand up. Straighten your back. Lift your head and wear what's been waiting. Chosen one, you will not miss your moment. The enemy planned your exit long before you knew there was a stage. He set traps in childhood, wove lies into your relationships, attached discouragement to your destiny. He hoped you'd disqualify yourself, that you'd surrender the vision, that you'd bury the very gift heaven fought to preserve. But you didn't. You stumbled. Yes. You cried. Yes. You questioned everything. Yes. But you kept walking. And that walk through shadowed valleys, through empty nights, through deafening silence was what proved your readiness. Not for a season, but for a summoning. You are no longer being prepared. You are being revealed. This moment isn't just significant, it is sacred. It's not just your turn, it's your time. There's a difference. People wait for their turn, but when it's your time, heaven moves. Doors open without force. Paths clear without permission. Things begin to find you, not because you're chasing, but because your name has been called in heaven's halls. You're not waiting for alignment. You are the alignment. Everything around you is shifting because you've shifted. Your language is different. Your vision is clearer. Your discernment is sharper. You no longer entertain distractions. You no longer cling to people who dilute your calling. You've grown, and growth always brings a revealing. What's coming won't make sense to those who only knew your struggle. They saw you in the furnace, but they didn't know what was forming. They saw you fall, but not what you picked up on the ground. They heard you go silent, but they didn't know you were being rewired. And now, the moment they never thought would arrive is here, and you are not who you were. You are fireproofed, spirit-forged, destiny-aware. You move with a precision that only comes from pain turned prophetic, from wounds that turned into wisdom, from disappointment that deepened your roots rather than detoured your mission. You have entered the moment you were born for, not because you've mastered it all, but because you've surrendered it all. That's the difference. Some rise with ambition. You rose with submission. And heaven crowns submission with favor that no man can fabricate. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not overlooked. You are precisely on time for what heaven has always intended. And even now, the enemy trembles because he senses the shift. He feels the roar beneath your silence. He knows that the one he tried to kill has returned, not weaker, but weaponized. What was meant to end you, God used to equip you. What was designed to confuse you, God used to clarify you. What was sent to poison you, God turned into power. So now, stand in this moment without apology, without shrinking, without questioning whether you're ready. You are, not because you feel ready, but because heaven says you are. And heaven's word is final. This is not a random wave. This is divine release. The heavens are watching. The angels are moving. The scrolls are fulfilled. The moment is here, and you will not miss it. Now breathe. Let it settle not just in your mind, but in your spirit. You've walked through 17 gates of truth, 17 unveilings, 17 confirmations that you are not random. You are not forgotten. You are not lost. You are chosen. Heaven has spoken. You've been pulled out of confusion, set apart from the crowd, clarified in the fire. And now, you know what you carry. You know what you must do. The hesitation is over. The veil is lifted. The scrolls are open. The angels are moving. And so must you. Don't go back to old mindsets. Don't shrink to fit old rooms. Don't mute your mantle just because it makes others uncomfortable. You were born to carry light. You were made for divine interruption. You are not just here to hear a word. You are here to be the word. And if this message resonated in your soul, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this word, share it with someone else you know is chosen but tired. Comment below with this short declaration: I receive my crown. And most importantly, subscribe to stay aligned with the flow of what heaven is releasing. This isn't just a message, it's a movement. And your next is only beginning. So, walk boldly, stand firmly, speak clearly. You've been called, you've been confirmed, you've been released. This is your moment. This is your charge. You are God's chosen one.